one of the core pieces of IP that we've developed here at Colbor around automated reporting. So what we do is we bring in frac data, wireline data, pump down, as well as a frac tree. We digitize a frac tree and work with smart wellhead companies and pull in that information. And so with all this raw data, we can automate a lot of the time log and a lot of the stage reporting that is done by the operators and the frac companies on site. So this removes a lot of that manual process. And so what we're pulling in, we can build the time log to the second. So we're moving a lot of this, like, people rounding up to 5 minutes or 15 minutes when they're identifying times. So it's all automated that way, and just removing, manual entry and fat fingering and those kind of issues. And so automated reporting can, from one side, just from the operational side, we can remove a lot of this manual entry and improve data quality this way, but also from the analytics side, to their analytics teams and to their leadership teams who wants to look at this and figure out how their pads are going, how their operations are going. They're getting a more standardized system that's getting updated to the second. They're going to get their daily reports every day to that same standard, and be able to make better decisions and run their operations better. And so that's kind of the core of why we built this. And a piece of this, right, was around not just helping the operator out, but also helping ourselves out. Our field techs are out there, and so we also remove a lot of the time that we were spending doing this work as well.
And maybe, Derek, you can talk about kind of what the automated reporting is built on, right? Because an important piece is, like, in what we do out there, there's a lot of layers, right? That start the data acquisition piece up through the state detection. So maybe walk us through like what this automated reporting stack kind of sits on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think if you were to try and build this yourself, you can get a prototype going that kind of works sometimes. It's maybe not that hard to get a prototype going. And that's how we started, right? We started with some prototyping. I think Alex built the first pieces of this. But now the code looks very different. Alex hasn't touched in a long time, so that helps.
Definitely.
But we've really built this up and had to attack every layer of the system to make sure it's robust and it had good testing around it, that it worked, in 99.99% of cases. So what we do is on site, we're going to grab the data from serial connections and APIs on site and bring that into an edge server that's also running on site. And this way, that we're not succumb to any kind of internet outages like that. We're going to be able to capture this data and automate and run all this automation regardless if we have internet or not. And we're going to have that data cached on site for when internet does come back and we can't connect, we can pull that data up again. So when we pull this data in, we're grabbing sensor data from Frac and wireline and all these different services and sensors. And there's a lot of issues that come up with sensor data, right? Data drops out, people change sensors, connections get broken. And so the first kind of big layer of our system is that data quality layer, making sure we're mapping things correctly, going through with our data ops team, with our data ops systems we're building out that capture these errors and make sure that the data that's going into our automation pipeline is good and accurate to the best of our ability. And we're always improving and continue to build on this.
When you keep mentioning accurate and standardized, I don't think a lot of people fully understand. Like if I were to look at a stage and manually identify, let's say how much water did we pump during the flush activity on this stage? Mm-hmm. Well, in your mind you say, well, flush started and there's some trigger to say that flush is, in this case, you stop pumping sand. And there's some activity to trigger that flush has ended, and then you start, okay, well, here's the max and here's the min, and you subtract it out. But actually getting a machine to do that does a couple of things. One, you can say that flush has started maybe when sand is at a specific concentration instead of zero, or flush has ended when you're at a specific pressure rating, or when clean rate stops, or something like that. And just having those very precise starts and finishes and being able to quantify your time or classify your time gives you repeatable steps from stage to stage.
Absolutely. It's actually really funny. When we first were kind of building this out and looking at our stage reporting, we had a lot of conversations with different operators, obviously. And some things were, there data points they were collecting for years, and they didn't really actually have a good definition of that data point. Like, well, what is average treating pressure to you? Is it the average pressure you were seeing while you were treating, while you had proppant going, or the average treating pressure from the time you got to rate, or the average pressure across from valve open to valve close? And a lot of operators are like, well, I don't know. I just get the value from Frac, and
Yeah, they
That's
just
what I
tell
get.
us.
Like,
Yeah.
whatever you guys do is probably fine too. And so we worked with them and we created a definition there that is standardized, right? So we're not going to fall to the whims of whoever's there that day says, oh, it should be this or it should be that. Ours is one approach, and it's always that.
Yeah, it needs to be
way.
consistent with all the new ways also that we see out there for fracking, like continuous pumping, for example. It's like, well, what's your pumping time? Well, it's all the time. It's like, is it though? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's your effective pumping time
Yeah.
versus non-effective pumping time? And am I, gaining from that continuous pumping if I have a lot of non-effective pumping time, running through pumps and water? So coming up with that very crisp definition of every one of those items that we put on our stage reporting was like a much bigger deal than we anticipated at the beginning.
Data in hand, we rock the bytes and we'll take a stand. Calculators flashing like a disco ball. Cold board tech, hey, we answer the call.